Well, Nigeria has turned a critical corner on the path to economic recovery, says President Bola Tinubu, as the country marks the second anniversary of his administration. Now, while the takeoff of governance may have been turbulent, the APC describes the journey so far as a reflection of careful planning aimed at ensuring a stable and successful landing. Also on political update, INEC swears in 6 resident electoral commissioners, announces date for Ekiti and Osun polls. Our PDP Secretary Tozo lingers as National Executive Committee gives date for NEC meeting. We will also be getting insight from our guest, the National Chairman of Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC. I am Victor Azu, and this is Political Update. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu says Nigeria has turned a critical corner towards economic recovery 2 years into his administration. Now, in a nationwide address to mark his second anniversary in office, the president outlined key reforms under the Renewed Hope agenda, affirming that bold decisions taken since May 2023 are yielding measurable results.
Faced with a nation on the brink, President Tinubu says his administration acted decisively to halt a looming economic collapse, scrapping decades-long fuel subsidies and unifying multiple exchange rate windows. These reforms, he notes, though tough, were necessary to stabilize the economy. The results? Easing of inflation, fall in staple food prices, including rice. The oil and gas sector is bouncing back. Rig counts are up over 400% compared to 2021, and more than $8 billion in investments have been secured. On Nigeria's fiscal deficit, he points out that it has sharply narrowed from 5.4% of GDP in 2023 to 3.0% in 2024. The country generated over 6 trillion naira in revenue in the first quarter of 2025, with foreign reserves rising from $4 billion in 2023 to over $23 billion by the end of 2024. Fuel supply security is improving through local refining. With subsidies removed, the NNPC has become a net contributor to the Federation account. Debt sustainability is improving too. Nigeria's debt service to revenue ratio dropped to under 40% in 2024, down from nearly 100% in 2022. The country has cleared its IMF obligations and discontinued ways and means financing, once a driver of inflation. The president states that tax reforms are paying off. The tax to GDP ratio has risen from 10% to 13.5% in 1 year. It further protects low-income households with essentials like food, education, rent, public transport, and renewable energy, attracting 0% VAT. A new national fiscal policy and a tax ombudsman are being introduced to ensure fairness and accountability, especially for small businesses. Targeted and transparent incentives supporting high-impact manufacturing, technology, and agriculture sectors introduced to stimulate inclusive economic growth. It highlights that diversification is also taking root. The solid minerals sector has attracted fresh investments and seen revenues grow. On security, the president says greater collaboration among security agencies is restoring order. Bandit-ridden regions in the northwest are seeing peace return. Farmers are back on their lands. Highways are safer. Abducted citizens have been rescued. Access to education has expanded through new infrastructure and the rollout of the student loan scheme. Infrastructure development is ongoing, with key highways and roads under construction nationwide. He reaffirms his commitment to economic justice, national unity, and shared prosperity for all Nigerians.
Elsewhere, the governing All Progressives Congress says the perceived turbulence experienced in the journey of the Renewed Hope agenda in the first 2 years of the Tinubu presidency is a clear manifestation of careful planning ahead of safe arrival within the ambit of a progressive and prosperous destination. Now, this came to the fore during a midterm assessment of the activities and legacy projects of the APC-led national government, under the stewardship of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Truly, tomorrow will bring better days.
It's been 24 months into a 4-year journey of the APC administration under the 8 points christened in the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the momentum across various key sectors of the economy is already yielding the floor for national debate. And the governing All Progressives Congress APC says the spectrum is a magnifying testimony of working reforms in energy, health, road infrastructure, social security, food sufficiency, ease of doing business, and ultimately the national security.
The massive support for military, welfare and funding of the armed forces have resulted in neutralizing of over 13,500 terrorists and arrests of nearly 18,000.
The National Publicity Secretary of the party explains that President Tinubu's flagship reforms for 2 years may be daunting, but the prospects will come with great relief that will launch a new path to a future of intergenerational significance.
Aside fast-tracking of the 1.5 trillion road concession projects under the Highway Development and Management Initiative, the administration is executing legacy projects such as the 750-kilometer Lagos-Calabar coastal highway.
The National Working Committee of the party congratulates President Tinubu for steering the ship of the nation and staying true to his oath of office amid difficult times and contemporary challenges.
Now joining us in the studio to examine the issues is the National Chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, Yusuf Maman Dantali. A pleasure to welcome you to Political Update.
Thank you. Good afternoon, my brother.
Now, it's 26 years of uninterrupted democracy. How would you appraise Nigeria's democratic journey since 1999, looking at the pros and the cons?
I will start by congratulating Nigerians and then congratulating His Excellency President Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu on his 2 years in office, and then Nigeria on 26 years of enduring democracy and sustaining it so far. But if we must look at this, we have to look at what exactly is democracy, and then how are we meant to put the government together. Democracy, as a borrowed concept from the Western world that is practiced there, is a government that is supposed to be put together by the people, by all, and then driven freely by those people who was given mandate by the people, and then in the end for the benefit of the same people. And in doing so, it is expected that all hands must be on deck to ensure that no section of the society or of the populace is exempted, whether deliberately or otherwise, from the process of electing the people. Here, if we have to evaluate democracy and considering the ideals of democracy or the characteristics of democracy, we are far from what is supposed to be. How? The foundation of any building, or the strength of any building, start from the foundation of that building. In Nigeria today, we have 3 tiers of government. We have the federal government, state and local government. And local government is supposed to be the government that is closest to the people, and that is meant to be the foundation of democracy. But we are all aware, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria identified or set up 2 different bodies to conduct election in Nigeria. The national election is being conducted by INEC, and then the local government election is conducted by State Independent Electoral Commission. And I can say this without mincing word that there is no election at the local level. This is a government that is closest to the people because of the activities of the State Independent Electoral Commission. And the implication of this is that we see this thing because it's beneficial or it's profitable to the interests of a few persons who are, especially the governors at that period. But in the long run, it is disastrous to the entire tenets of democracy. That is one aspect. And then secondly, what is the relationship between the three arms of government? We have the executive, we have the legislature, we have the judiciary. And these arms of government are supposed to operate independently, though there are supposed to be checks and balances. But then the principle of separation of powers is supposed to be upheld. But from what is happening here, where a situation where somebody will come up and say, okay, I bought the forms for all the legislative house of assembly members. The governor determines who become a legislator in his state, determines who becomes. So,
isn't that also a function of party politics?
Thank you.
Why did the political
I'm
party
going there.
sell what forms to one person?
I'm going there. I will still go to the strength of the way the parties are put together and how parties are administered. So now, doing that, and then somebody will come out openly to say, okay, I made this person, I brought him to this position. It is not the people that elect him. That is an aberration to the principles of democracy. You want somebody making somebody, another person, a governor, making him House of Assembly member, so these are aberrations. These things are negations to the principles of democracy. Now, coming to the party level, ideally the party is supposed to be supreme. Okay, let's even take example of the United States of America. I was watching the TV this morning, and then the Supreme Court in the U.S. Are pulling back with upturning some of the decisions that the president took, not just today, and some other things that the president, you can do this, but you do not, you exceeded your powers or the limit of your powers to do to invoke some things. So now here we do not have such. Now the political parties, how is the political parties managed? Where do political parties derive their funds? Because you have to administer the parties. We have a situation in the past. Political parties were wrong, were founded, and these funds were managed. Yes, somehow it was abused. But the fact that it was abused does not mean we cannot sanitize the system. You don't throw away the baby and the bad water. Now, individual political parties are expected to generate funds to run the affairs of the party. So, with the situation on ground, it now becomes who pays the piper dictates the tune of the music. So parties are now in the hands of individuals, selected individuals who have the deeper pocket or who have the state resources at their disposal to determine what happens in the political parties. Where the party hierarchy will say this and one individual will say that, and that is what happened. If it doesn't happen, almost all the political parties in Nigeria today have one issue or the other about who becomes what. And for instance, like the PDP, there's a secretary here, there's another secretary here, this person. So you see vertical or antagonizing national executive working committee member. So some of these things, until parties are able to determine what happens in the party. So how would you see a situation where somebody is the one providing the funds for maybe rent and other administrative expenditures in the political party, and then it comes to who becomes what, and the person have interest, of course. It's the person will determine who becomes what in the party. So some of these things we'll have to begin to look at it. Well, I'm sorry. Then looking at maybe the electoral body, for instance, like INEC, okay, who appoints the head of INEC? So now this one man appoints the head of INEC, the president, and the president is supposed to be subject to election, the process being put together by INEC.
What are the options if the president doesn't appoint? Because I think this is what the Constitution dictates.
Yes, recently there is a sitting by the Joint Committee, a National Assembly Joint Committee on Electoral Act and Constitutional Amendment, and IPAC have been able to put a wonderful proposal to the National Assembly and what needs to be done and how that is supposed to be done. But I can make copies of our suggestions, our proposals available to you. And recently, too, let me just bring this, a body, the National Assembly, the House of Representatives in particular, a bill was sponsored by the Speaker, the Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, and then one other House of Rep member from Lagos. On the...
From Plateau?
Lagos. On setting up of a body who will administer, who will register, administer, and register and fund political parties. But when we look at it, we saw a lot of, we were able to sit with them, interact with them, and then some of, and this is a very wonderful development because INEC is overwhelmed with so many things. But the bill, some of the contents of the bill give so much powers to one individual called the registrar, who can hire and fire at will. And
but that hasn't become law because I'm sure it will be subjected to the rigors of legislative debates and all of that. So if it hasn't become law, then it is not a problem.
I've not gotten to where I'm going to. That happened. We interacted under the sponsorship of the Kuka Foundation and the Yaga Africa. And when, I think a week later, it was public knowledge that that bill was withdrawn. But today, we saw that bill, okay, as number 17 of the bills that passed second reading today. So some of these aberrations, we need to begin to at least be transparent and putting Nigeria forward. Yes, it will still get to the the state assembly, the Senate, and then there will still be public hearing. Maybe at that point, what is supposed to be done will be done.
All right. Meanwhile, it's 2 out of 26 in terms of uninterrupted democracy for this current administration, and pointing to various achievements in various sectors. Meanwhile, the administration acknowledges that the country is not where it ought to be. So how do you think that IPAC can contribute to further strengthening Nigeria's democratic institutions and processes?
IPAC, as you know, is an advisory body. We do not have the powers to legislate or implement anything. What we do is to suggest, because all the political parties, the party in power and parties in opposition are all members of the Inter-Party Advisory Council. And what we do, most of our suggestion and advice, we don't bring it to the public or but what we do, at least in the council meeting, the General Assembly, we try as much as possible what we think need to be done. Where there are suggestions to be made, we made it through the political party in power, what need to be done. But that will not bring it here.
But is that because there are laws that stop you from bringing it to the public, or it is self-censorship?
No, there are no laws. You see, as the name implies, Inter-Party Advisory Council. All the political parties are members of IPAC. So since all the political, as a father, what we do, we don't say this is right or that is wrong. We must advise where we think is necessary, but that is done in-house. But coming out to condemn that this person is right or that, no. But we can, when it comes to ethics of democracy, the processes, yes, we can bring that out. But not when it has to do with a particular political party and what they do. We don't bring that up.
So what initiatives has IPAC taken to enhance cooperation and dialogue among political parties in Nigeria? And what successes, if any, have you achieved, considering political intrigues playing out in some of the major parties in the country today?
In the history of Inter-Party Advisory Council, this is the first time that you have all the parties playing in IPAC. We have all the parties. We have never had this before. And why do we have that? Because we are trying to see how can we harmonize the divergent interests. How can we, at least while we can play our opposition roles, okay, in our individual parties, but how can we still narrow and then reduce some of the pre- and post-election crisis, okay, among us? Because why am I saying this? The common man on the street is expecting the politicians to do the best, okay, to be the role model. So we should be able to contain our own internal issues within the parties, within the family. So, but if we are seen as not able to do that, then that will by extension affect what happens in the larger society. So for that reason, we tend more to bring everybody on board and discuss closed door rather than coming out to begin to throw tantrums. But of course, when election comes, there are interests.
Okay.
Everybody I want to be occupy a particular office, another person, my party want to do party B, want to be what. So there will be that during election.
Okay.
But we try to separate governance and political
politics.
Thank you.
All right, let me put you on hold for now so that we take some other stories. And the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has announced dates for the conduct of Ekiti and Osun State governorship elections next year. The INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, made the announcement while swearing in 6 resident electoral commissioners at the INEC headquarters here in Abuja. Now, the FCT area council elections are also coming next year.
Governorship elections in the 2 states were held in June and July 2022. The 4-year tenure of the governors will end next year. For Ekiti State, the election will be held on Saturday, 20th July 2026. However, party primaries will start on 20th October 2025 and end on 10th November 2025. In the case of Osun State, the election will be held on Saturday, 8th August 2026. Party primaries will start on 24th November 2025 and end on 15th December 2025. The Commission is aware of the concern expressed by some Nigerians about the pending by-elections and the resumption of the continuous voter registration nationwide. The number of by-elections has now risen to 17. We are aware of the urgency to commence the continuous voter registration, particularly in view of the forthcoming governorship election in Anambra State. We want to assure Nigerians that we are finalizing our preparations for both activities, the details of which will soon be made public.
All right. I had thought that I'll take you up, Yusuf Maman Dantale, on some other issues, but we've completely run out of time. So let me thank you very much for your time on Political Updates and your perspectives.
You're welcome.
All right. I would thank you so very much for joining us on the program. Keep a date with us next week for other insights on Political Updates. I'm Victor Azu. I'll see you there.